You don't have to clap for all these, or you're never get home tonight.
Also at their wedding 55 years ago that are here today is my Aunt Betty Smith, her son Jerry, and daughter Betsy. My Aunt Dorothy Raisler. I have cousins Margie, Eileen, Charles, Sharon, Randy, Dwayne, and Dennis.
All raceless.
Betty Olson is here, but she's now Jerry Raisler's wife. Ron Rick, whom I served with, we went in the Marine Corps together. He's somewhere here. Roseanne Trinkus Brown is Marvin's sister and also my next door neighbor when I was growing up. Very good. And there may be others here who were at the wedding dance, but we don't know who they were.
Well, 1962 was an interesting year. Some facts you may know about that period are gas was 28 cents a gallon. A dozen of eggs cost 32 cents. My husband says they're almost that cheap now at Quick Trip. We spent $10 a week for our groceries. The average cost of a new car was $3,000, but that was high compared to our '57 Chevrolet that Jean bought before we were married. It was a gorgeous two-tone yellow and chartreuse, excuse me. I also had one, and mine was peach and white, and I wish we still had them today. They would be worth more than $1,000 I think we paid for them. The average rent was about $110 a month, but our first furnished apartment up in Minneapolis was only $85. So we got furniture and everything for a lot less. The average take-home pay for a worker at that time was less than $100 a week. But the job I left to get married, I was a dental assistant for Dr. Lipstrew, and I made $25 a week.
We're on the next page. So you're supposed to tear yours apart like I do.
And just some historical facts. JFK was president at that time, being the youngest to take the office at age 47. John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth in February of '62. It was the year of the World's Fair in Seattle. The first Walmart opened in Bentonville, Arkansas by Sam Walton. Spider-Man made his first appearance in Marvel's comic books. The first rocket landed on the moon in April, and President Kennedy promised there would be a man on the moon in a decade.
They also decided that we needed flavored potato chips, and they were introduced to the public, salt and vinegar. Motel 6 opened its doors with its first motel in California. Interesting one. Decca Records at that time turned their nose to a contract for the Beatles. The Beatles came out with their first recording. It was a single called Love Me Do. We couldn't afford records, we were so poor. Andy Warhol painted his first famous painting, and that was the can of the Campbell's soup. Johnny Carson started on television with The Tonight Show. And all the big hits was The Twist and the Limbo, was the dance craze. I know my dad at our wedding dance couldn't walk the next day because he had taken a hula hoop and was doing it to the twist.
On TV, black and white, were the best shows. By the way, 90% of the homes at that time had a TV set. WKPT started in La Crosse in 1956 with news at 6 p.m. and again at 10 p.m. with Howard Fredericks. Some of the shows that were on at that time were the Beverly Hillbillies, Candid Camera, Red Skelton Show, Bonanza, The Lucy Show, The Andy Griffith Show, The Ben Carson, or Ben Casey, okay. The Danny Thomas Show, and The Dick Van Dyke Show, and Gunsmoke. Those were shows at that time.
I think you could probably still see some of those on TV today. Reruns, right. Popular in the movie theaters then was The West Side Story. And then there were all these big movies, Spartacus, El Cid, Lawrence of Arabia, and of course the big hit To Kill a Mockingbird.
And you might want to know what a wedding was like back then. Being married in the Catholic Church at that time meant fasting from food and water after midnight, so weddings were early as possible.
My husband told me that we got married on a Wednesday, and a lot of people asked us why. And he says, well, nobody got married on Saturday night because they couldn't party after midnight and go to communion on Sunday. We girls went to get our hair done about 8 a.m., dressed at 9, mass at 10, photos and after, and a dinner for the wedding party because, of course, nobody's had breakfast yet. Their families and all of the out-of-town guests at noon. One photo you may have question about over there, after we were getting our photos taken, there was a young, short bishop from the Philippines that came and gave us a blessing and asked he had a picture taken with us. We didn't really know who that was at the time. He probably was visiting the new cathedral because it had just been built. We were I think maybe the second couple. The first couple married there, they still had scaffolding in. Anyway, we learned out afterwards that it was Cardinal Sin from the Philippines. And he sent us a letter in 1999 giving us a special blessing and acknowledging that. So then after that, there was a reception at the Mary Sawyer for 500 people from 3 to 7 in the afternoon, in the early evening. And of course, everybody had to go home and milk their cows. And then there was a dance, and everybody from one end of the ridge to the other came, and that was from 9 till 1. So that was a long, long day. And the dance was at the Avalon.
Little personal thing here. I graduated from Gale Technical Institute in Minneapolis, what is now called IT. The computer took up a whole windowless room, and I knew that was not my calling. Soon after that was the Bay of Pigs crisis erupted, and I was called up for active duty in the Marine Corps, reporting to Camp Lejeune on April 4th. Brian was due on May 4th. Through the brilliant negotiations of the Kennedys and calling Khrushchev's bluff, I was sent home again, and the Cold War was better with the withdrawal of the missiles from Cuba.
Brian was born late May, Maureen 14 months later, and Raymond 14 months later, so that became our fourth family life. Jean spent 30 years on the La Crosse Police Department and retired in 1996. I studied for my real estate license, I think along with Dorothy Beyer in here, in 1974 and received 2 technical degrees, managing both the Wheeler Company and Heschler Realty, and then retiring in 1990 because of my RA. Now I enjoy doing digital art, and I'm nearing an end of producing a book called Seek, Ponder, and Pray. This book will be for the Marian Catechist, hopefully, and will be printed soon, I hope by October, for them. And I had put up a story over here about a cake, and somebody suggested that I had to read it, so I just have to turn this over. These stories started because our grandsons gave us a journal one year to write in these different stories, and they soon called it the Gazette. because apparently I don't know when to stop, but I guarantee you I'm giving you the short version. One Saturday afternoon, our phone rang, and Maureen, our daughter, was calling me from her home in Las Vegas. Mom, if you were here, you could win a contest on one of our radio stations today. She continued, this station is seeking the oldest item in someone's freezer, but you have to be able to prove that date. Oh, I can, I replied, knowing exactly what she was referring to. There was a lot of preparation put into our wedding 55 years ago. I needed to select my dream dress for this special day, like one worn and gone from the wind, with layers and layers of lace over a hoop. Since we were one of the first couples married in our new cathedral, everything had to be just perfect. There were a few traditions like something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Well, I solved that riddle and was properly prepared. Not until years later, however, did I find out my mother never told me what to do with the top of our wedding cake. Knowing my mother had shirked her duty, I thought my mother-in-law would have told Jean and me of this custom. After all, she and her husband have been attending German weddings across the ridge for a year and knew all the proper traditions. So now, we must admit, we still have the top of our wedding cake. It is nesting on one of our wedding napkins, printed with 2 united gold rings, showing our names and the date, Jean and Mary Ann, July 18, 1962. No one ever told us we were supposed to eat this crowning layer of wedding cake on our first anniversary, as many newlyweds have done, complete with sweet memories. We have owned 3 refrigerator freezers, 1 chest freezer during our married life, which we've used in our 3 homes. This frozen, petrified cake, inside its cardboard box, safely secured with freezing tape, has been properly protected to this day. About every 5 years or so, we look inside to make sure it's still there. In 1996, we closed down our house, including our refrigerator, to leave on our first extended retirement trip. This necessitated finding a cake sitter for our mound of frost. Where is it frosting? My mother-in-law, probably out of a guilty conscience, volunteered. 1 week after return, our cake box and its rare contents returned to our freezer. It presently resides on the lower shelf in the back left corner. Jean and I speak occasionally about just throwing away this remembrance of our wedding day, but we're afraid it will bring back bad luck to our perfectly good marriage. We could always will it to our children. Maybe one of them, if they have it long enough, they will be able to win a radio contest someday. See what happens when your mother doesn't tell you everything.